Hello everyone, my name is Brandon Brooker and this is my true crime podcast, Over Your Shoulder, where we talk about all things true crime from cults, murder and missing people, all things that will make you want to look over your shoulder the next time you leave the house. So today we've got a really long case, so we're just going to get straight into it. Lucy Letby was born on the 4th of January 1990 in Hereford, England. Lucy was an only child to her mother Susan Letby and her father John Letby, who were a finance manager and an accounts clerk. Being an only child, Lucy was her parents' pride and joy. She could do no wrong. Her parents thought that she was the perfect daughter, and she was bought because she was beautiful, smart and kind. As Lucy grew up, they wanted to be involved in everything that she did. People in her life say that when you first met Lucy, she was very quiet and reserved, but as soon as you got to know her, she was fun and outgoing. She would really let her hair down. Lucy lived in a very normal middle-class house and she was provided with anything that she ever wanted. She was given love, attention and education. She was described to be a very normal and happy child. Becoming the UK's most prolific child serial killer, though, you would imagine that she had faced some sort of childhood abuse and trauma, but no, she was very happy and content. At school she was also fine, she wasn't bullied or anything. She was quiet, but she had no warning signs that she would go on to do what she did. Apparently Lucy Letby was quite a difficult birth, so when she was younger she would tell people that she wanted to become a neonatal nurse so that she could help young babies and mothers. As she grew up into a teenager, this passion continued. Lucy attended school at the Aylestone High School before moving on to Hereford Sixth Form College. Everyone in her life knew that Lucy had a massive passion for nursing, specifically child nursing, so when she took steps to make it her career, nobody was surprised. Lucy Letby started studying at the University of Chester, where she began her nursing degree. And in the last year she decided to specialise in child nursing. Lucy was a very dedicated student. She really wasn't the type to go out partying all the time, and if she did, she would always go home early so that she would be on time for her classes. During her time in university, while getting her nursing qualifications, she completed training at the Countess of Chester Hospital, which is where today's case takes place. Lucy was actually the first person in her family to go to university, so you can imagine how supportive and excited her parents would have been. They were actually so proud that they bought a little ad in the newspaper that said, quote, "We are so proud of you. After all your hard work, love, Mum and Dad." Lucy Letby graduated as a qualified nurse in 2011 and later in 2012 began working at the Countess of Chester Hospital, but now as a qualified nurse in the neonatal unit of the hospital. When Lucy told her parents that she wanted to stay in Chester, which is a bit of a distance from her hometown in Hereford, her parents were quite upset. They thought that when she had finished university, she would go back down to Hereford. However, Lucy had fallen in love with Chester and decided that she wanted to stay there. Lucy had said that she feels like her parents smothered her and were way too involved in her life, so when she decided to stay in Chester she was sort of relieved. Even though as an only child she felt guilty for abandoning them. So now Lucy Letby is working on the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital, which means that she works with the most vulnerable babies. But Lucy decided to undergo further training which allowed her to work with and treat even the sickest of babies. She even completed further work placement at the Liverpool Women's Hospital. Lucy Letby was described as being very kind and caring towards her patients. Of course, these mothers and babies were in a very vulnerable situation, so to have someone there supporting them was just what they needed. Over the years, Lucy was living a very normal life in Chester. She bought herself a house where she lived alone. She formed strong friendships with the other nurses on the neonatal unit. The nurses would actually hang out often outside of work, and they went on an annual trip to Ibiza, which comes up later. Letby was a part of her local quiz team at the pub. She would go to the gym regularly. She was active on social media. She was a normal, regular person. Lucy was single during her 20s, but she always dreamed of finding a man to fall in love with, get married, and start her family. Which, knowing what we know now, is kind of a terrifying thought that she would have children. However, her main focus in life was her work, her career. Lucy would show up early and leave late on shifts, and she would try and pick up as many shifts as she could. Lucy once featured in the local newspaper. In the picture, she is seen holding a baby grow, and the article said that her role was to provide care for babies requiring varying levels of support, and that she enjoyed supporting families and seeing the progress that the babies were making. She also started a campaign to raise money for the unit, and this ended up raising £3 million. Due to this, she was actually featured on a billboard. Looking in, you would think Lucy Letby is a perfect nurse. She's highly dedicated to her work. She raised £3 million for the unit. You would never think that a person like this would go on to be the most prolific child killer in the UK. So now we are going to skip ahead 3 years to 2015. Lucy Letby has completed all her training, which allows her to work with the most vulnerable babies. In June of 2015, Lucy was working like every other day in the neonatal unit, specifically the intensive care section of the Countess of Chester Hospital. Lucy had passed her training back in March of 2014, so she had been working on the intensive care section of the neonatal unit for over a year at this point. The neonatal unit was like every other unit in the country, a team of about 30 nurses and 7 consultants, all taking care of most vulnerable and sick babies. Despite these babies being highly premature, very sick, and due to a high standard of care, the survival rate in neonatal units was actually quite high. Studies show that for every 1,000 babies born prematurely in the whole of the UK, less than 2 will die. So if you think about that, it's a very small amount of babies that are passing away. Each year, hundreds of babies were treated at the Countess of Chester Hospital, and the death rate was about 1 to 3 babies per year, which is a very normal amount. Keep that in mind. In May of 2015, the hospital sent a number of members of staff on an extra training session about baby safety, and I'm sure you can guess who was one of them: Lucy Letby. During this course, nurses would learn things like how to put in an IV, and something they were warned about specifically was air embolisms. An air embolism is an air bubble in the blood vessel, and if an air bubble is injected into even a grown adult, let alone a premature baby, it can cause massive damage and even death. Now, being a normal person, you would think, oh my god, I can't let this happen. But no, not Lucy Letby. Lucy used this course as kind of inspiration to cause harm to babies which were in her care. 2 weeks after this training course, the death rate on the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital would go up and up for the next 12 months. And after way too long, it would be found that one person was responsible for these increased deaths. In June of 2015, a woman was brought into the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital because doctors were concerned due to high blood pressure. This woman was roughly 31 weeks pregnant, and this was a twin pregnancy. However, this woman suffered from an autoimmune disease which increased her likelihood of forming blood clots. So when she had elevated blood pressure, she was admitted into the hospital. Even though this woman was around 9 weeks away from her due date, staff at the Countess of Chester Hospital decided that it was safer for both the mother and the babies for the babies to be delivered now. So the woman was rushed in to have a cesarean section. This surgery went well and both babies were born, however they were quite premature. The first baby was a boy who weighed only 3 pounds and 12 ounces, and the second baby was a girl who weighed 3 pounds and 11 ounces. I want to make it known that all victims and their families in this case have been left anonymous, so we don't actually know any of the names of the babies. So they have been given a letter, so baby A, B, C, D, etc. So these twins are baby A and baby B. As these babies were born 9 weeks premature, they were known as what they called intensive care babies. In the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital, there are 4 rooms labelled 1 to 4. Nurseries 3 and 4 were where babies who still required care were cared for, however, they weren't at a very high risk. Nurseries number 2 were where babies who needed more specialised care, and they were a higher risk, and this is where they were cared for. And then nursery number 1 is where the most vulnerable sick babies were cared for. They required 24-hour care as they were in the most critical condition. Babies in nursery 1 had a dedicated nurse that was solely responsible for the care of a baby. So back to baby A and baby B. They were both placed into nursery number 1, which happened to be the nursery that Nurse Lucy Letby was working in, and she was assigned to look after baby A. So now we are on the 8th of June 2015, which is a few days after baby A and B were born. Baby A was still in nursery 1, however, as the days were going on, his condition was beginning to improve. Baby A was beginning to breathe on his own, and the doctors were able to consider his condition as stable. However, that would not last very long. On the evening of June 8th, 2015, Lucy Letby started her shift. Lucy took over the shift from the day nurse, and Lucy Letby was left alone with baby A. Letby was setting up a glucose drip, but at about 8:20 p.m, baby A stopped breathing. Doctors and nurses rushed in, and they were trying their very best to help baby A and save his life. Doctors were giving him CPR and trying to resuscitate him. His poor parents rushed into the room to find their baby dying, and it said that the mother was understandably crying hysterically and screaming, quote, "Please don't let my baby die." At this point, baby A, his skin went super pale and had a kind of blue tint to it. And suddenly these strange, purple blotches began appearing all over his body. And the interesting thing about these, blotches was that they would, appear in one place, disappear, and then flare up in another area, which doctors were a bit confused about because they'd never really seen this. I mean, that kind of says a lot, doesn't it? Because these are paediatric doctors with years and years of experience. So for them to never have seen anything like this before was very concerning to them. Doctors and nurses were trying to resuscitate him for about 40 minutes. However, unfortunately, after consulting with the parents to stop treatment, and baby A was pronounced dead at about 8:58 p.m. The mood in the neonatal unit was very low. The passing of baby A had affected everyone. Of course, doctors and nurses are going to be sad about the loss of a baby. However, this baby was progressing and was stable. The death was so unexpected, so that kind of hit the staff a lot harder than it normally would have. Some nurses were even that devastated by the loss of baby A that they had to take a few days off work to kind of get themselves together, to grieve and recover. But guess which nurse didn't do that? Lucy Letby. She was on shift the very next day and appeared to be not affected in the slightest. And tragically, things in the neonatal unit continued to go downhill, even more for the next 12 months. On the 9th of June 2015, just one day after the death of baby A, Nurse Lucy Letby started her shift again in Nursery 1. This is where baby B was being cared for. She was born blue and actually had to be resuscitated at birth, so was in a much more critical condition than her brother, baby A. But fortunately, things were looking up. During her time in the intensive care unit, she was getting stronger and stronger each day. She was able to breathe on her own. Now, as you can imagine, her family were glued to her bedside. You know, after losing one baby not even 24 hours earlier, they were not leaving that baby. They were not letting her out of their sight. Doctors were especially worried about baby B because, of course, baby A's condition had gone down so unexpectedly. And at this point, they were still believing that, they were kind of believing that it may have been linked to the mother's autoimmune disease. So they were keeping an extra eye on baby B to make sure that her condition didn't deteriorate. The parents of baby B have been at the bedside for about 24 hours at this point, so they haven't eaten and they definitely hadn't slept. So after Lucy Letby and a few other nurses convinced them to go and get some food and get some rest, their baby was stable and they shouldn't worry. But I can imagine, looking back, I'm sure these parents regret this massively. Lucy Letby was not the assigned nurse to look after baby B. However, as she was working in Nursery 1, she still had access to her at all times. At around midnight, Lucy Letby was left alone with baby B. She was helping out a colleague who was the assigned carer for baby B. This colleague left the room for a few moments, so Lucy was now alone with baby B. Again, doctors and nurses rush into the room. The parents are awoken to their baby not breathing. The mother can be heard screaming, "Not again," over and over again. Doctors were giving baby B CPR, trying their very best to save her life. Baby B turned pale and also started to develop those strange purple blotches all over her body. The doctors had no clue as to what was going on. One minute the twins were stable, then the next they stopped breathing and were covered in strange purple blotches. After 10 to 15 minutes of resuscitation, doctors were able to get baby B breathing and she was stabilised. And amazingly, and fortunately, she would go on to make a full recovery. I'm so happy to say that baby B survived, and I cannot begin to imagine how the parents were feeling in these moments. And I'm also very happy to say that after a month, baby B was discharged and sent home with no long-term side effects. So now the question arises, what actually happened? What caused the twins to stop breathing and break out in these purple blotches? A post-mortem exam was carried out on baby A and no cause of death could be determined. So doctors continue to believe that it was an effect from the mother's autoimmune disease. I'm sure that the mother of baby B must have felt so guilty, feeling like it was her fault that this had happened to her babies, which it totally wasn't, but for years she must have had that idea in her head until she found out the truth. But we do know that a person was responsible for the death and attack on the twins, and that was Nurse Lucy Letby. So going back to the attack on baby A, remember she was preparing a glucose drip. Well, at the same time, she intentionally injected air into baby A's bloodstream. Now, this air embolism was not picked up on the post-mortem. However, this is what caused the death of baby A. And then it is strongly believed that Lucy Letby did the exact same thing 24 hours later with baby B. But as we know, this did not work and baby B did survive. It is believed that nurse Lucy Letby targeted these babies intentionally because she knew that these parents had actually struggled to conceive. So she did this to cause the most pain imaginable. After baby A's death, Lucy Letby had the audacity to participate in the bereavement process. She took the finger and footprints of baby A, she cut a lock of his hair, and even created a sort of memory box for him, which is just sick. How she could play the role of a caring and compassionate person after doing something so heinous is honestly beyond me. What's even worse is she continued to mess with the family, because when she went home, she was stalking the parents on Facebook, seeing their grief. She wanted to relive the attack and see how much devastation she had caused. This is a very common thing with Lucy Letby. She likes to insert herself into the grief. She plays the role of a caring and concerned nurse supporting the family, which, when she's the complete opposite, she's callous, calculated and sadistic. Now we are on the 13th of June 2015, which is 5 days after baby A's murder. Lucy Letby has been told to take a few days to recover from the death and has been moved into the nurseries 3 and 4 where the less critical babies are. I guess the theory behind that is that she would have to do less work and give the nurses more time to recover. This is standard procedure, but nurse Lucy Letby was not happy about this. When she got home, she started messaging her friends on WhatsApp, venting about unhappy that decision had made her. She said, quote, "From a confidence point of view, I need to take an ITU baby soon," which means intensive care unit baby. She also said, quote, "I keep thinking about Monday. Feel like I need to be in one to overcome it, to get the image out of my head. It probably sounds odd, but that's how I feel from when I've experienced it at the women's. I've needed to go straight back and have a sick baby, otherwise the image of the one you lost never goes. Don't expect people to understand, but I know how I feel. Anyway, forget it. I can only talk about it properly with those who knew him. I'll overcome it myself. You get some sleep." To me, it looks like she's almost playing the role of a victim, saying that she was the one that was distraught about the death and the other nurses didn't understand how she felt. Like, she also wants to go back into the nursery specifically one reason, and that's to kill more babies. After persistently voicing her opinion 5 days after baby A's death, Lucy Letby was back on Nursery 1 looking after the most vulnerable babies. And as soon as Lucy Letby is back in the ICU, the same things start to happen again. Now, I'm not going to go into detail with all the babies because there are a lot and they all follow a similar pattern, so I'm going to run through the timeline of events of the attack and murders. On the 13th of June 2015, baby C was attacked twice and unfortunately died on the 14th of June at 5:58 a.m. after doctors tried to resuscitate baby C for 5 hours. On the 21st of June, baby D was attacked at 1:30 a.m. but was resuscitated and was attacked again a few hours later and again was resuscitated, but was then attacked for a third time and at 4:30 a.m. on the 22nd of June was pronounced dead. Now, at this point, a doctor had become suspicious and found some research that found that nurse Lucy Letby was present at all 3 deaths so far. This doctor brought this up with the director of nursing, but their concerns were just dismissed. Lucy had sent her friends more messages saying, quote, "I keep seeing them both. No one should have to see and do the things we do. It's heartbreaking. But it's not about me. We learn to deal with it. It's not about me or anyone else. It's about those poor parents who have to walk away without their baby. There are no words. It's been awful." End quote. After the death of baby D, she sent a message saying, "On a daily basis, it's an incredible job with so many positives. But then sometimes I think, how do such sick babies get through and others just die so suddenly, unexpectedly? Guess how it's meant to be." Followed by another message saying, quote, "I think there's an element of fate involved. There's a reason for everything." Which is so eerie. It's almost like she's trying to justify the deaths, saying it was fate and that it was just meant to happen that way. Now this, realistically, is where this case should end. Lucy Letby has already been linked to the deaths by a doctor, so an investigation should have been conducted, and then Lucy Letby would have been arrested and spend her life in prison. However, that is not the case, because the hospital just dismissed her suspicions, so Lucy was still free to kill. August 2015, which is roughly 6 weeks after the last murder, and now we have another set of twins, baby E and baby F. Baby E and baby F were born about 11 weeks prematurely and were supposed to be in the Liverpool Women's Hospital. But unfortunately, this hospital was full, so the mother was sent to the Countess of Chester Hospital. On the 3rd of August, Lucy Letby was assigned nurse to these twins in the ICU. In the evening, the mother had left the baby's bedside to go get something from the cafe. This is when baby E was attacked. This baby was screaming and blood was pouring from his mouth. Over time, his condition deteriorated. He lost over a quarter of the blood in his body and he developed those strange purple blotches. At 1:40 a.m. on the 4th of August, baby E passed away in his parents' arms. It was later discovered that some sort of metal equipment had been shoved down his throat, which had caused this massive bleeding. About baby F on the 4th of August, his parents tried to get him transferred hospitals. However, these efforts were unsuccessful. Lucy Letby returned to her night shift and was in nursery 1. Baby F was in nursery 2. However, Lucy Letby visited baby F in nursery 2. Baby F would have had regular insulin drips because he had issues with his blood sugars. He was making strong progress though. However, at about 9 p.m. his blood sugar levels crashed. Doctors rushed in and they were confused as to what was going on. When one doctor removed the insulin drip, his condition began to improve and was later discharged after making a full recovery. So it appears that Lucy Letby had attempted to overdose baby F with insulin. So at this time there has been 4 murders and 2 attempted murders, but no action has been taken. The hospital were continuing to not investigate these deaths. If a sample was taken from baby F, they would have realised that how dangerous the levels of insulin, and this could have stopped the case so much sooner, but no, they continued to act like there was no issue at all. I feel like unfortunately the first few murders were not preventable. However, after baby D, honestly, or even baby F, if the hospital had investigated, then what was to come would have been prevented. You have to remember that the death rate for the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital was between 1 and 3 per year. Now we have 4 in the space of 2 months. Baby G was actually born on the end of May 2015, but was born very prematurely. So technically she was the oldest baby in the case, but she was born very prematurely. The case of baby G is actually especially sad because baby G was an IVF baby. Her mother had struggled to get pregnant, So G was a miracle baby. Baby G was actually born at 26 weeks. The mother had come into the hospital and was suffering from stomach pains. And when she went into the hospital bathroom, she gave birth in the toilet. Nurses came in and scooped the baby out of the toilet because she was still in there. Baby G, of course, had a lot of problems as she was born so prematurely. I forgot to mention this happened at Arrow Park Hospital. So doctors at Arrow Park Hospital had seen that Baby G had made great progress and decided to transfer her to a hospital which was closer to where she lived. Now you can guess which hospital that is, the Countess of Chester. So on the 6th of September 2015, Baby G was in nursery number 2 in the neonatal unit. The next day, September 7th, was really exciting on the unit because it was actually the 100th day of Baby G's life. And because she was born so prematurely and with so many issues, doctors didn't think that she would survive. So for her to have made it to 100 days was a massive milestone. The nurses had put up banners and there was a cake. They were all so excited. However, Lucy Letby joined the shift at 8 p.m. This is quite important because I forgot to mention earlier, Lucy Letby always attacked on night shifts because there was less people around, and since her last attack, she had only been working day shifts. This was her first night shift since the attack on baby F. So Baby G is in nursery 2 and Lucy Letby is in nursery 1. So realistically, she had no reason to be anywhere near Baby G. G was in stable condition, but at 2:15 a.m. the alarms began to ring. Nurses rush into the room to find Baby G projectile vomiting everywhere, while Lucy Letby is just stood over her bed. An oxygen mask is put on Baby G to help her breathe, and she's continuing to vomit everywhere. Her stomach is swollen and purple, so the decision is made for her to be moved to nursery 1 for extra observation, which was probably music to Lucy Letby's ears because remember, she's working in nursery 1. And even worse, Lucy Letby was the assigned nurse to Baby G's case. Doctor has realised that Baby G had vomited up a large amount of milk, and they had also managed to release a large amount of air from her stomach. This allowed her condition to stabilise, but it turns out that Letby had excessively fed Baby G milk, as well as injecting air into her stomach. After this attack, Lucy continued to send messages to her colleagues, and they would always show her sympathy. They felt bad for her that this was always happening to her, and she was enjoying this. She was enjoying all the attention that she was receiving, which makes me think that maybe she's sort of suffering from Munchausen by proxy, because people who have it harm others to gain sympathy and attention, and it appears in the case that Lucy Letby might have this. However, this is not diagnosed, it's just my own personal opinion. Anyways, I digress. She has messaged a colleague saying she's, quote, "She looks awful, doesn't she?" End quote, which is just gross because she fully knows, well, she just knows why, because you did it, After this attack, Baby G was thankfully transferred back to Arrow Park Hospital, and of course her condition wildly improved as soon as she was out of the reach of Lucy Letby. But unfortunately, after spending 8 days at Arrow Park Hospital, Baby G was transferred back to the Countess of Chester Hospital. And on the 21st of September 2015, Lucy Letby would attempt to kill Baby G another 2 times. Now, when Baby G was transferred back to the Countess of Chester Hospital, she was placed in nursery 4, which truly shows how strong her condition and how stable she was, because, I mean, in nursery 4, that's where the less critical babies were. really sad point is that the 21st of September happened to be the original date baby G was meant to be born, which is important because Lucy Letby does like to attack on very significant dates. Remember that first attack on baby G that happened on her 100th day of life? And now another attack carried out was on her original birthday. Lucy Letby attempted to kill baby G the exact same way she had the first time. Excessive feeding and injecting air into the stomach, which caused the vomiting and swollen purple stomach. But again, baby G was able to be stabilised. But a few hours later, in crept Lucy Letby, attacking again. This time, baby G stopped breathing, with Lucy Letby being found alone in the room with her. It's so blatantly obvious that Lucy is involved, so it's frustrating how nothing has been done. Baby G was moved into Nursery 1 because her condition was so critical at this point. And I'm so happy to tell you that baby G survived, and on the 2nd of November 2015, she was sent home. However, due to the attack, baby G has suffered quite severe brain damage and now suffers from cerebral palsy, which seriously affects her day-to-day life. G is now 8 years old in 2023. She cannot walk, needs a feeding tube, and is visually impaired, so requires 24-hour care from her parents. This video is already getting so long, and we are only in September of 2015, which means that attacks began 3 months ago, and the attacks will continue until June of 2016. So now we are on the 26th of September 2015. A baby girl known as Baby H collapsed and stopped breathing several times. The first attack was at around 11 p.m. and then the second at about 1 a.m. on the 27th. It is believed that Lucy Letby injected her with air in the bloodstream both times. Unfortunately, she was resuscitated both times and was transferred to another hospital where she recovered. 3 days later on the 30th of September, baby I was attacked. This case is very similar to the attack on baby G. This time Lucy Letby was working a day shift, which is unusual for her. She was baby I's dedicated nurse. As I said, baby I collapsed and stopped breathing, but was able to be resuscitated very quickly, in only 4 minutes. And over the next 2 weeks made a strong recovery. Her recovery was so good that doctors were getting ready to send her home. However, unfortunately, baby I would never go home. On the 12th, Lucy Letby came in for her regular night shift, but she wasn't baby I's designated nurse this time. Her nurse went on a break and Lucy intercepted and was seen standing over baby I. And this is when she collapsed and stopped breathing for a second time. Later that evening, baby I was attacked again, resulting in her collapsing and stopping breathing once again. After this event, she was transferred to another hospital on the 15th of October, where you can guess she made a great recovery. Yet again, the terrible decision was made to transfer her back to the Countess of Chester Hospital. On the 22nd of October, baby I was stable and being prepared to go home. Later that night, Lucy Letby made a fourth successful attempt on baby I's life. She injected air into her bloodstream, she stopped breathing, and after an hour of CPR, doctors stopped and baby I passed away in her parents' arms. Again, she bathed baby I and took her picture. She was apparently smiling, and the parents said they remember Lucy bathing their deceased baby and she appeared to be enjoying it, which is so sick. How sick can a person be? And this really upset the parents, and they just wanted Lucy to off and leave him alone. The day of baby I's funeral, Lucy Letby sent the parents a card where she said, quote, "There are no words to make this time any easier. It was a privilege to care for your baby and get to know you as a family who always put baby I first and did everything possible for her. She will always be a part of your lives and we will never forget her. Thinking of you today and always. Sorry I can't be there to say goodbye. Now again you'll be wondering, when does this end? Well, in October of 2015, somebody attempted to do something, because at this point we're at 5 deaths and the death rate is usually 1 to 3. And there have been 5 in the past 4 months. Now, a group of doctors came together and decided to investigate these deaths, and they all noticed one common thing in all these incidents. Lucy Letby was the only member of staff who was present for every single one of these attacks. So these doctors decided to take their suspicions in case to senior management. And at this point they weren't thinking that Lucy Letby was intentionally causing harm, but rather she was just being a bit negligent. You can guess what is coming. Senior management brushed it off, and the doctors were told, this is a quote, "Stop making a fuss." Making a fuss? Babies are dying. If there's time to make a fuss, it's now. Honestly, they're just trying to make sure the hospital's image wasn't tainted. They didn't want this to look bad on them, which in my opinion damaged their own image. You know, if they investigated the doctor's suspicions and contacted police and put an end to the killings, then their image might have looked better. However, because they did absolutely nothing, not only is their image damaged, but they're continuing to allow a killer to keep on killing babies. So these doctors were ignored, but these doctors were not going to give up so easily. They were going to continue to investigate. However, because senior management had done nothing, Lucy Letby was still free to roam on the neonatal unit. In November of 2015, Lucy Letby attempted to murder another baby. Baby Jay was again attacked, stopped breathing, but fortunately doctors were able to save Jay's life and no further harm will come to after the original attack. So now we're going to fast forward 3 months into February of 2016 because there was no more attacks. Another link to Lucy Letby was made. Those purple blotches that had been shown up in the babies after the attacks. Well, one of these doctors connected these blotches as a symptom of an air embolism. So this group of doctors wanted an investigation to be carried out and figure out why so many babies had air embolisms. They pushed a thorough review to be carried out, but once again senior management pushed the doctors away and delayed a review until May of 2016. And if management couldn't get any worse, they told the doctors to leave Lucy Letby alone. At this point, word of doctors going to senior management and the link of Lucy Letby and the deaths had gotten out. Lucy Letby even heard this, and I imagine she was panicking. And in response to this, Lucy went to senior management herself and filed a complaint saying that the doctors were bullying her. And they actually took this complaint seriously because apparently bullying is a bigger issue than child murder. Management made the doctors write an apology letter to Lucy Letby. What? In February of 2016, baby Kay was born. She was born at 25 weeks, so she was very premature. She was left alone with Lucy Letby and her breathing tube became dislodged. Doctors were able to stabilise her, however, 3 days later she passed away, and annoyingly, later when Lucy Letby was arrested, she wouldn't be charged with baby Kay's murder, but she was charged with attempted murder, which makes no sense to me because she successfully took the life of the baby. However, but because she died 3 days later, it didn't count, I guess. Later on in April of 2016, another set of twins were attacked, baby L and baby M. With baby L, Lucy Letby poisoned baby L with high levels of insulin, and then their blood sugar levels diminished rapidly. Baby M was injected with air into the bloodstream, their heart rate and breathing worsened. Unfortunately, both twins survived. However, to this day, baby M has long-lasting effects due to the brain damage caused by the attack. Lucy has now been harming and killing babies for the last 10 months. She appears to have gotten away with it for this long because she was good at covering her tracks. She would always attack babies who were especially vulnerable and had pre-existing conditions. She would also change up the method of how she killed. She would inject air into some babies' bloodstreams, some had air injected into their stomachs, some were heavily overfed milk, some were poisoned with insulin, and baby E had medical equipment forced down their throat, causing massive bleeding. She got away with it for a long time because a pattern could not be established. If they were all killed the same way, then it would be more suspicious, but because she changed her methods up, it wasn't as obvious. Not to mention, she always attacked when she was on the night shift, when there was less people about, less people to catch her in the act. People just would not suspect that a nurse who is there to treat you and be the one person you can trust. And another argument brought up is how she got away with this for so long is white privilege. She had this caring and sweet image, She appeared to be very normal and a caring person, but she's the complete opposite. And her colleagues were fooled by her. She would text them expressing how upset she was by the loss of all these babies. However, this was just for sympathy and attention. She thrived on it. It was a very well-known fact on the unit that Lucy was present at all the deaths, and the almost deaths. Trainees thought this was funny and used to give her the name Angel of Death. Lucy was so insensitive that after one shift where a baby had passed away, she texted a colleague saying, quote, "Work has been but I just won £135 on Grand National. Unpacking party sounds good to me with my flavoured vodka, ha ha." Another thing she would do after every murder is go on Facebook and look up the family of the baby she had murdered and check on them, how they were grieving, and she did this hundreds of times. Remember that thorough review that was set to happen in May of 2016? Well, this review was done and the suspicions were yet again dismissed. Now we are finally getting to the end of these horrible, heartbreaking events. June of 2016, we are now a whole year since the beginning of the killings. Baby N was in the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital on the 3rd of June, which was a few days after they were born. This baby actually suffered from a condition which caused internal bleeding. Lucy Letby used this to her advantage and forced a tube down his throat, causing even more bleeding. She then injected baby N with air, which almost killed them. Fortunately, they were managed to be saved by doctors. Now, going all the way back to the beginning when I mentioned the nurses have an annual trip to Ibiza. Well, Lucy goes on this trip and is pictured having a great time, which just doesn't sit right with me. You've murdered and tried to kill many babies and you can't just go to Ibiza. Like, it didn't happen. After 2 weeks in Ibiza, Lucy Letby messages a colleague letting her know that she's excited to go back to work, saying, quote, "Probably be back in with a bang, lol," end quote. And she damn well came back with a bang because Lucy arrived at the hospital for her shift on the 23rd of June. She was assigned to care for 2 babies. These 2 babies were 2 boys out of a set of triplets and they were in very good condition. However, baby O and baby P required a bit of extra care before they could go home. Baby O was left alone with Lucy and she injected air into him, causing an elevated heart rate and swelling of his stomach. After the alarms went off, his parents and doctors rushed in, but after 6 hours of resuscitation, baby O was pronounced dead. And only 13 minutes after the death of baby O, Lucy Letby attacked his brother, baby P. Again, she injected him with air, but she pretended to feed him to cover it up. Baby P collapsed, but was saved by doctors and was stabilised. However, when Lucy Letby returned the next morning for her shift, he had again collapsed and had been injected with air, and this happened only 19 minutes into Lucy's shift. Doctors were frantically trying to save this baby. They especially didn't want these parents to lose 2 babies in less than 24 hours. An ambulance was ordered to transfer baby P to a specialised unit, and as the team was stood waiting for him to be transferred, Lucy asked with no emotion at all, quote, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" The nurse who she had said that to says how chilling it was, and how she remembered how she just said it so unemotionally. And unfortunately, this cold comment made by Lucy Letby would be correct, because at 4 p.m, baby P was pronounced dead too. I cannot even begin to imagine how those poor parents would have been feeling. To lose 1 baby is difficult, but to lose 2 in the space of 24 hours is just absolutely devastating. So now we're going to skip ahead another 24 hours where baby Q was attacked. And baby Q happened to be the last victim in this case, and so happy to say that baby Q did survive their attack. So we have 17 victims and 8 of those being murders. Now we are going to talk about the downfall of Lucy Letby. It is June of 2016, and at this point it's very obvious that Lucy Letby is behind all these murders and attempted murders. All the staff know it, and senior management finally know it now. The thorough review that wasn't very thorough back in May of 2016 was due to the group of doctors pushing it for Lucy to be moved off the ward so an investigation could be carried out. This did not help because after the review, 2 more murders happened. And at this point, senior management knew that they had to act. They could no longer brush these claims under the rug. July of 2016, management contacted Lucy Letby to let her know that she was no longer allowed to work on the neonatal unit. Now, this is a great point for the police to be called, but no, Lucy was taken off the ward. Management were really waiting as long as they could to get the police involved. Lucy was placed on a desk job away from any patients. However, she was given a job which she really was not the best advocate for. She was placed in charge, or she was placed in the office for patient safety. Now, back down at the neonatal unit, all deaths and near deaths have miraculously just stopped, which is very telling, isn't it? Not another incident happened for months. So a year goes by, and now we're in May of 2017. Yes, the police have still not been called over the past year. The hospital has been doing an internal investigation into the deaths and in connection to Lucy Letby. At this point, management were trying to cover it up. They believed that it was just a bunch of coincidences, but that a group of doctors continued to push it and were telling management that it was intentional, it was murder. And after pushing and pushing, the doctors told senior management that if they didn't go to the police, then they would. And finally, this is when management contacted the police. As soon as the police were contacted, an investigation began. They looked into all the deaths and the almost deaths in the neonatal unit. They analysed the work schedule to check who was on shift at the time of the attacks. They analysed post-mortems, medical records, blood tests, and so on. This investigation was taking a long time, and by now we are in July of 2018. On the 3rd of July 2018, the day had finally come. Lucy Letby was arrested for the first time. Police arrived at her home at 6 a.m. The look on Lucy Letby's face when she was being arrested is actually amazing. When police searched her home, they were shocked at what they found. They had a lot of evidence piling against her, and it kept piling up. But the most vital piece of evidence in a murder case is a confession, right? Now, we're not going to get that from Lucy Letby. However, when police searched her bedroom, they found several post-it notes. These post-it notes had some quite disturbing things written on them. She had kind of rambled, saying things like, "I am evil, I did this, I don't deserve to live, I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them." Just a lot of rambling, but very much evidence against her. If anything, to me at least, that's a confession. I mean, she said she did it, so that's enough evidence. They also found in her room hundreds of medical documents of her victims, which is believed to be a sort of trophy. They found baby sheets and pictures of cards she had sent to the parents of the babies she had killed. On her laptop, they found hundreds of searches on Facebook stalking the parents. So Lucy Letby was brought into for questioning, and they were really hoping that Lucy would just make it easy for them and give a full confession. But Lucy continued to claim her innocence. Even with all the evidence, it would take police another 2 years to finish the investigation. Might I add that during these 2 years, Lucy Letby had been let free due to police needing more evidence. So a child serial killer was just walking around for 2 years. But in November of 2020, Lucy Letby would be arrested once again and would be charged. Skipping ahead to October of 2022, Lucy Letby's murder trial would begin. This trial would go on for a whole 10 months and ending in August of 2023, which makes this the longest murder trial in UK history. The reason this trial took so long is because of how complex it is. There were 17 victims to go through. Jurors were given a 25-page long glossary, and this was just like about medical terms and, like terminology. Sometimes notes on each baby could be up to 800 pages long. There were 5,500 witness statements, 32 exhibits, and evidence took a week per baby, so that's 17 weeks of evidence just regarding the babies. Lucy Letby was facing 7 charges of murder, even though 8 babies died, but remember baby K died 3 days later, so that was an attempted murder charge. She was also charged with 15 counts of attempted murder on top of the 7 murder charges. As she faced extra attempted murder charges for the babies, she had tried to kill multiple times. That's why she has 15 charges for that. Lucy Letby pled not guilty to all of the 22 charges against her, so the prosecution got to work. They obviously had lots of evidence to go through. As I said, each baby took a week to go through, but medical records had to prove that these babies died or were harmed at the hands of Lucy Letby intentionally rather than due to negligence. They had a lot of complexities to work through, the hospital's negligence, and they had to acknowledge that at points the hospital was at fault ultimately. These babies were killed by one person, Lucy Letby. Medical records did show that the babies had been sabotaged, and the nurses and the parents of the victims all testified. Even Lucy Letby herself testified in her own defence. She spent 3 weeks giving evidence, claiming that she always loved children, how she wanted to work with them from a young age, and that all these claims against her were just false. She did acknowledge that someone had sabotaged the babies, but she stood up in court and said that it wasn't her. Even Lucy's own parents believe that she's innocent. They have stood by her every single step of the way and attended every day of the trial. She claimed how much she loved children, but throughout the whole trial she didn't shed a single tear for those babies. She only cried when it involved her life and her cat's. She would continue to play the victim card. Now, after listening to 30 weeks of evidence and 300 witnesses, one question was left unanswered. Why had Lucy Letby done this in the first place? Well, the prosecution argued that she had a god complex, as well as a hero complex, which does make sense. She would harm these babies intentionally and then would help to resuscitate them. They also argued that she did this for sympathy and attention, due to WhatsApp messages she would send to her work colleagues. Now, another theory out there, so bear with me. This theory is that there was this married doctor which Lucy was interested in, and began an affair. Lucy and this doctor would spend lots of time together. They would eat lunch together and go on little trips. This doctor was on call for emergencies in the neonatal unit, so if anything was to go wrong with the babies, he would come rushing in. So the theory is that she did this so she could just spend time with him. This has not been confirmed, so take this with a pinch of salt. A theory I mentioned earlier is that she could be suffering from Munchausen by proxy, where she did this intentionally to gain sympathy. Munchausen by proxy is a mental illness where a person makes other people sick on purpose for sympathy and attention. Now, we cannot confirm any of these theories because Lucy continues to not speak and claim her innocence. So personally, I don't think we'll ever know the true motive behind the murders. On the 18th of August 2023, the jury went to deliberate, and after 10 months of trial, almost 8 years since the attacks began, and they came back and found Lucy Letby guilty of all 7 murders and guilty on 7 of the attempted murder charges. This makes her the most prolific child serial killer in the UK's history. The reason she was only found guilty of 7 attempted murders was for 6 they could not make a decision, and she was found not guilty on 2 charges. On Monday, the 21st of August 2023, Lucy Letby's sentencing was decided. Lucy actually refused to show up to her sentencing, so the government are currently looking into changing the law to make sure criminals have to be in court during sentencing. She was given 14 whole life orders, meaning she will never be considered for release. Lucy is actually only one of 4 women in the UK to have been given this whole life sentence. She joins Rose West, Myra Hindley and Joanna Dennehy in that. Since Lucy Letby was taken off the neonatal ward at the Countess of Chester Hospital, they have delivered 2,500 babies and had only 1 death. The government also stated that an independent investigation will be carried out in this case and the failings of the hospital. This should be a public inquiry because that has a lot more legal power than an independent investigation, but we'll see what happens. The police are also looking further back into Lucy Letby's career from when she worked at Liverpool Women's Hospital, and maybe even when she worked at the Countess of Chester Hospital when she was doing work training. I believe that somewhere I heard that 13 deaths of babies happened in the whole time she's working there, so maybe there could be even more victims. Now, I've seen that ever since I've done my research in this case, Lucy has tried to appeal her convictions and her sentencing, but I really highly doubt that she'll be released. Well, definitely won't be released, but if her sentence is reduced, she'll still won't get out, so it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, it does, because for the families it needs the charges, but yeah, that's the rest. That's it for today's case. Thank you so much for listening. If you watch this on YouTube, then give me a like and subscribe, and if you listened on Spotify, give me a 5-star rating. That really helps me out, and I will see you in my next episode. Bye.
I'll look around until I found someone who laughs like you.